Thanks a lot. Well, Russia has moved overnight to ban all Australian imports worth around $1.8 billion, as well as considering a ban on all Western countries flying over Russian airspace. The news comes just as we were mourning the 38 Aussies killed by his rebels in the MH17 disaster. We're joined now by Communications Minister Malcolm Turnbull and Labor's Deputy Leader Tanya Plibersek. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Malcolm, I'll start with you. An outrageous ban at an outrageous time. What is our response to this?
Well, the world is standing up to Russia. Tony Abbott has actually led world opinion in standing up to Russia over its outrageous conduct in the Ukraine.
That's been prior to these announcements overnight.
No, but the fact is there are sanctions being imposed on Russia, and the Russians are responding to them. It's not unexpected.
What's our response now?
Well, the net loser out of all of this will be Russia. I mean, I'll leave the precise responses will be, calibrated with other like-minded countries, but Russia will be the loser out of this. I mean, Putin is reacting against the firm response from the rest of the world, and his country, his citizens will lose out of this.
Putin is due here in November for the G20 summit. Tanya, do you think he should be banned?
Well, I think it's important for the world community to be able to say to Vladimir Putin that the behaviour in backing the separatists in Ukraine, the aggressive moves towards other neighbours, is unacceptable. And sometimes the best way to do that is to have someone in the room and say it to their face. It's still not clear that he will come in November. There's always the chance that he might pull back. But it is true that these sanctions come at an extraordinary time. Australia has participated in one round of sanctions against Russia, and that was after the invasion on Crimea. But I think, Malcolm, we haven't even, as Australians, said that we would sign up to this second lot of sanctions that the US and the Europeans agreed to more recently in response to the shooting down of MH17. So it's a punishing of our primary production sector and our farmers at a time when it seems that the Russians have backed separatists, have armed them, and those armed separatists have shot down a plane with Australians on it. It's extraordinary behaviour.
Outrageous. It certainly will have an effect on the economy with that $1.8 billion taken out of it. And let's stick with the economy now. As Ross told us, the jobs figures are not good. Unemployment is at a 12-year high. Treasurer Joe Hockey says the government must be allowed to implement its budget to get the economy back on track. Tanya, your response?
Well, the budget's part of the problem. I mean, the budget includes measures that have destroyed consumer confidence. People are worried about spending money, they're worried about their jobs. You see the effect particularly in states like Queensland, where first of all Campbell Newman has sacked teachers and nurses and public servants, and now the additional federal government cuts that are proposed to health and education services compound that. If you take 10 teachers out of a community or 20 nurses out of a community like Townsville or Rockhampton, in fact, they've lost hundreds of staff up there from hospitals and so on. You feel that effect right across the whole community. I think the budget's part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Joe Hockey is holding back on tax cuts until he can get all of those moves through. You've got this new bromance going with Clive Palmer. Malcolm, is that helping at all? Well,
before I get to the bromance, let me just correct a point about the unemployment figures. Look, they're regrettable to see unemployment rise. We want unemployment to be low, but let me just make this point. There are more people looking for work now than there have been for a very, very long time. The participation rate has gone up. There have been a lot of new jobs created, and there is a lot of confidence in the economy. So that's one of the reasons unemployment has gone up.
But the participation rate includes people who just work for 1 hour.
No, the participation rate includes people who are looking for work. And what happens is when the country is being poorly led, when people lose confidence in the economy, they give up and they say, oh, it's no point looking for jobs. What you're now seeing is a higher participation rate, and that means there are more people looking for work, and that means and that's one of the factors behind the increase in unemployment.
Lisa, think about this. When we went into the global financial crisis in 2007, we had the same unemployment rate as the United States. The United States unemployment rate went to double the Australian unemployment rate. our unemployment rate is now higher than the US since this government's taken office. It's higher than you expected, Malcolm. It's higher than you predicted in the budget. It's going up at a time when our economy should be coming out of the global financial crisis.
All right,
it's getting worse.
We're going to have to move on. This week the government beefed up the anti-terrorism laws, announcing $630 million will go towards boosting spy agency powers. But the coalition has struggled to sell its new data retention policy, which requires telecommunication companies to store all our metadata for 2 years. Now, let's just have a quick look at George Brandis, the Attorney General, trying to sell metadata on Sky News.
What you're viewing on the internet is not what we're interested in, and that's not what we regard.
But you'll be able to see whether I've been to that website or that website or that website.
Well, what the security agencies want to know, to be retained, is the electronic address of the website.
Malcolm, very embarrassing and a hard one for you to get behind, this one. You said back in 2012 that data retention is a sweeping and intrusive power with a chilling effect on free speech, with major questions over security and privacy. You're not a fan, are you?
Yeah, let me just take the opportunity to clear a few things up here. I had a lengthy meeting yesterday with the Attorney General, his department, with ASIO, the Australian Federal Police, and other law enforcement agencies.
After being excluded from this initial policy.
Just let me go on, Lisa. What I can confirm is that the agencies, the law enforcement agencies, and therefore the government, is not seeking that the telcos, like Telstra and Optus and so forth, retain any information that they are not currently retaining. And in particular, they are not seeking that the telcos retain details of your web browsing history, which sites you go to, which IP addresses you connect with. So that we want to be very clear about that. What they're talking about is the data that they're currently recording, which is in the telephone world, you know, you rang me at such and such a time for how many minutes. They're saying they want that to be kept for 2 years. And in terms of the internet world, they want to, for internet companies, telcos, to retain the details of which IP address you were using at any given time for 2 years. Now, telephone companies and ISPs retain that data connecting your account to a particular IP address, that's to say your IP address. They retain that now, but not always not for 2 years.
So
that's what's being sought.
Okay,
so there's no question, just to emphasise this, what you do on the web, where you go on the web, is not, the agencies are not seeking that be recorded in any form.
All right, I'm not quite sure how that improves anti-terror initiatives, but
well, I can explain that if you like.
Well, I don't know if my boss is going to let me know. I'm getting a no, unfortunately.
Okay, all right, well,
next time you can.
Next fortnight, okay.
Thanks very much, Malcolm. Thanks a lot, Tanya.
Thanks, Lisa.
Over to you, Carl.